Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call this February 16 meeting of the Andalusia City Council to order and ask everyone to join Councilman Wells as he leads us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for the day that you've made. We thank you for the privilege to worship in a free society and to govern in a free society.
Yes.
We ask you tonight to guide us with wisdom and knowledge in order to make the decisions that would be pleasing to the citizens of Andalusia and also to you. Now we ask this in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone tonight. We have a number of guests with us, and we always are happy to have guests join us. Remind everyone that we meet on the first and third Tuesdays of each month, with a workshop starting upstairs at 5 o'clock and the regular business session starting down here in the council chambers at 6 o'clock, and the public is welcome to come. Members of the council, I believe the first thing we have to consider tonight is our minutes of our meeting for February 2nd to approve or correct.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the regular meeting minutes on February the 2nd, 2016.
All right, motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Powell. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please indicate by raising your right hand. And I thank you for that. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, we have an issue relating to a bid opening for some police vehicles and a pickup truck for the Public Works Department. The bid opening was February the 11th at 2 o'clock. At that time, we had two bids presented for consideration. One bid was by Allen Vigil Ford and one by Andalusia Ford. At that time, also we consider the state bid, which is a bid that a dealer gets for the entire state, and it's approved for governmental agencies to consider the state bid as well. Neither of the private bids was the lowest bidder. The state bid was the lowest bid on all the vehicles. But today we were told that Andalusia Motor Company had made a mistake on their bid, and they sent us a package, I guess, to be substituted for their bid, which we cannot do. We did not open that package. It would be improper to consider a bid package after the date that you've advertised, and everybody else has complied with that. However, in an effort to make certain that Andalusia Motor Company gets their bid considered, what we have considered doing here is declining both of the bids and not exercising our right to accept the state bid, and advertise again in an effort to make sure that Andalusia Motor Company, if they choose to, get their bid in by that time, the new bid opening time, and get their bid like they need it to be, rather than, as they said, they had a mistake on their first one. So, members of the council, what I recommend to you is that we reject both the bids that were submitted, not exercise the right to accept the state bid, and follow that with a rebidding or re-advertising to allow whomever wants to exercise the right to bid on these vehicles again. So that I would recommend to you that that's what we do.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we reject the bids we received and to re-advertise for bids in order to provide our local dealer an opportunity to participate and perhaps get that business.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Have a second by Mr. Wells, and as a matter of further edification, Mr. Powell pointed this out upstairs, and I'll remind again here in open session that we are allowed under state law a local bidder to have to consider their bid the lowest if it's within 5% of the lowest bid that we receive. Now, we don't know whether Andalusia Motor Company's new bid will be within 5% or not, but we always take that into consideration when considering local suppliers when they make bids. If they're in the 5% rule, we always exercise that in their option. So with that further explanation, all in favor of the motion, please indicate by raising your right hand. Any opposed? So we will take that action. Our next item of business is to conduct a public hearing concerning unsafe structures and dangerous buildings. Tonight, we're going to hold a series of public hearings on whether to remediate certain structures that the city's appropriate municipal officials have found to be dangerous to the extent that they create a public nuisance and are therefore due to be demolished or repaired as applicable, according to the findings of the appropriate municipal officials. The city adopted a new ordinance to provide for the remediation of dangerous buildings and structures. We are glad to have this tool available for our community. We have, under that ordinance, we have appointed Andy Wiggins, and Fire Chief is our official appropriate municipal officials to carry out the exercise of this new ordinance. We have with us tonight Attorney Ben Goldman with the law firm of Hen Arundel in Birmingham. Mr. Goldman is the city attorney for several cities in Alabama. He has developed a specialization in assisting cities with the remediation of dangerous buildings and structures. As we proceed tonight, I will call on Mr. Goldman to give a general review of the process, since this is the first round of public hearings under our new ordinance. After we have received the general overview, we will move into the public hearings for each specific property. After opening up the public hearing, I will ask if there is any party present who has an interest in the property that is subject of the public hearing. If you are such a party, at that time, I would ask you to stand, introduce yourself, state who you represent, and state your address for the record. I will then call upon Mr. Goldman. Mr. Goldman will offer evidence particular to the property in support of the action requested by the appropriate municipal official. Once we have heard the evidence, the city's evidence, we will then proceed or provide any interested parties with an opportunity to respond with respect to that property. Finally, we will open up for comments from anybody in the general public who wants to make a comment about any specific piece of property. After all comments have been received, I will close the public hearing, and should it please the council, we will entertain any motion relative to the disposition of that particular piece of property. Then we will move on to the next parcel and proceed as I have just described with regard to each remaining property. Of course, it is the privilege of the council to continue the public hearing for any particular party or property, or to table a resolution for any particular property should the council deem it advisable and necessary. Now, Mr. Goldman, please provide us with a general overview of the city's dangerous building program.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. This is a process that really began many, many months ago. It started with a conversation with your planning department, with your city attorney, with your mayor, a few members of the council. They had heard about an ordinance that was being used around the state of Alabama to assist with the remediation of dangerous properties. This was an ordinance that I first drafted in 2011 for the city of Tarrant, and since that time we have rolled it out into cities all the way from the top of the state in Athens down to the very southern part of the state down to Citronelle. We've taken it from basically just this side of Mississippi all the way over to Hobson City, which is right outside of Anniston, in the eastern part of the state. And we've used it from cities that are challenged with their resources to cities that have other needs, such as the city of Vestavia Hills. And so in that process, we have had the opportunity to remediate over 100 different residential structures for these various cities. We remediated commercial structures, everything from storefronts to one that was a particularly notorious hotel in Vestavia. And along those ways, we've used this from some of the traditional issues that some of which you'll see tonight to some that are, for example, with Vestavia, the reason we were called in there was because following the April 27th, 2011 tornadoes, they had 533 buildings that were damaged, and a year later, many of those were still not taken care of. The insurance companies weren't doing what they needed to. By the time we got to April of 2014, every single one of those structures had been remediated. And I say all this to say that what you're doing here tonight is not unique. It is not something of your own creation. This is a method that has been tested in circuit court. It's been upheld by the circuit judges. It's been upheld on appeal in the Court of Appeals. So I have a lot of confidence in the system and in the process that you're utilizing tonight, because it's already been tested and challenged by property owners. So I know that when you get to the end of this process, you're going to have a result, however you choose, that you can stand behind. The ordinance that you adopted provides a process, and that begins following that with the appointment of the appropriate municipal officials, which you heard about. And in this case, we had a number of different properties, more than are set for public hearing tonight, that were identified in an initial round. We often, you can't tackle everything at once, but I will tell you that the first step in that process was to send letters to the property owners and the interested parties. Your appropriate municipal official did that, and as you'll see in a moment, that was successful in causing some change without having to come here all the way to a hearing and to go through that process. Others did not respond, and so the next step in that process is to file what is called a lis pendens. Now that document does several things. One, it makes all of the findings that the appropriate municipal official needs to make to support whatever it is he's recommending, whether that be demolition or repair. We have both of those recommendations here tonight. I think we have more set for repair on the balance than we do for demolition, in fact. But that notice, which is about 12 pages and makes all of those findings, one, is posted on the property itself. Two, is posted in the usual places where you post your ordinances around the city. So 3 additional places. 4, a short form of that notice is run in the paper, and then also certified mailings are sent out to all the people who have assessed the property last assessed the property for taxes. A title search was done of the probate court record. And notice was sent to any of those parties. If there was a mortgage on the property, notice was given to the mortgagees. If there was a lien on the property, notice was given to the lien holders. All of those things were done in an attempt to bring anyone who had an objection to the proposed demolition or repair here tonight and to give them the opportunity for a hearing. And that's why we're here. So as we review those, we'll cover those materials that are in the packets that have been presented to the council. If we have property owners here as we reach those properties, I do have an extra set of those packages, and I'm happy to make them available to those property owners. And so tonight you'll have a recommendation made either for a demolition or repair. You may either vote it up or vote it down. In one case, I anticipate asking you to continue it to the next meeting but no further. And then what will happen from there is the city will have the chance to go forward and to accomplish that work. And the decision doesn't have to be made tonight, and it varies a little bit between the demolitions or repairs, but there is a process where the city is able to recapture its costs associated with the demolition or repair and the process, including attorney's fees, and to charge it as a lien against the property. That happens in another public hearing later on after the work's already been accomplished. So, and new notices will be sent for that. So that's our process, and Mayor, I'm ready to, well, actually, let me cover one specific property before we get into the individual public hearings. One of the properties that I mentioned that we sent out a letter on was 1200 Henderson Street. Now, this property is not set for public hearing tonight. Here you can see this is located behind the Winn-Dixie, and you'll see that property highlighted in red. Now, these are some photographs of the before condition of this property. This is a residence. You can see it's in the deplorable condition. It's wide open. Part of the siding has been ripped off, and I won't get into the various components and structures and members of the building and its problems with the building code, but suffice it to say that the building official found that it was unsafe. When the letter was sent, the property owner contacted the city, and it was worked out for that property to be demolished. That demolition has already happened. Those are the after photos that you see there now. And that property is actually now moving towards redevelopment. So we see this as an opportunity where the process has worked and been successful. This is really the outcome we want in every case, where the property owner responds early in the process, contacts the city, and works out a plan, whether that be demolition or repair or something else. But this is certainly, I'm glad to say that it showed that the letters can accomplish what we hope that they do, which is that the property owner will show up and tell us that they're going to take responsibility in one form or another. All right, so Mayor, I'll turn it back to you for the public.
Let me ask you one question.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Goldman. How much time were the property owners given between when the letters were sent out to the property owners and tonight? About how much time is that?
Those letters first went out before Thanksgiving. It was approximately, your city attorney sent them. I believe they went out around November 20th. Okay, all right. So those went out around that part of November, and it was a 20-day letter. I've found, just through my other experience, 20 days seems to be a bit of a magic number, that if you're going to hear from someone, that gives them a fair opportunity to pull together at least a plan, contact a contractor, or at least to contact the city and let them know that they're willing to have a conversation. Then the Liz pendants in this particular case were mailed out and posted on December 21st, and were recorded in probate on the 23rd of December. So it's been, I think Mark said, about 56 days to tonight from when those Liz pendants were issued. So you're running now approximately three months from when the initial letters went out.
Okay, so the property owners, theoretically, I know it may vary from parcel to parcel, but have had about 3 months' notice to work with the city to get something done on all these properties. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, within the confines of this ordinance and this particular process. And it varies a little bit from property to property, but several of these, and we won't get into the back history tonight, but I would also state that on most of these were not the first touches that the city had in regards to the property. These are ones that they've really been looking to the property owner to work on for a long time.
Okay. Is your first property 220 Crescent?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. We will now open the public hearing on whether to remediate 220 Crescent Street pursuant to the city's dangerous buildings ordinance. If there are any parties here who have an interest in the property, for the record, please stand now, identify yourself or who you represent and your address. 220 Crescent Street.
George Patterson, Jr., 220 Crescent Street, Andalusia, 3643.
Okay.
And I didn't get the first letter from him because I didn't know him at that time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
I will call on Mr. Goldman now to present the evidence and make the recommendations as the appropriate municipal officials wish to make with respect to 220 Crescent Street.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Mr. Patterson, for pointing that out. And I would say, even though this one is set for public hearing tonight, I would also put this well within what I would call the success column for this process. I'm pleased to report we do have a package prepared for you that contains the Liz pendants for this property, the affidavit of publication, a number of pictures. The Liz pendants, again, contains specific findings of your appropriate municipal official. And I would offer those into evidence, but that being said, we were able to reach a remediation agreement on this property. And what that means is that, and we'll take a look at this, but you can see these are some photographs that show the condition of the property in previous months and prior to the time apparently that Mr. Patterson purchased it. These are some photographs today, and I'll go back to the before so you can see the after, because these shots are from the same viewpoint. So you can see he's making considerable progress. A schedule's been worked out. In fact, he's been working long enough now that the initial schedule has been tweaked a little bit because he's expanded his plans, which we fully encourage. We're very happy with the work that is happening here. And so we want to make sure he has sufficient time to do this. And so I call our appropriate municipal official, Andy Wiggins, up to confirm our recommendation. But in this particular case, what we're asking the council to do is to order the building for demolition. The reason we do that is so that we don't have to start the process over if something goes wrong, but to administratively defer that demolition for 120 days, which would be right there at 4 months, which gives, he has about 3 months worth of work planned. We have it in a Gantt chart that shows the sequencing and the progress of the work step by step. And so we've built in about 30 days wiggle room in case of bad weather or other things under control. The idea being that when we get to that deadline, we feel like we've given really a reasonable bit of time and then a little bit extra too, but not so long that this problem will continue. So the recommendation is that it be ordered for demolition, but that the demolition be administratively deferred for 120 days to allow the property owner to bring the building up to code, to the requirements of the building official during that time, and as laid out in the written agreement that incorporates the Gantt chart setting forth the timeline.
Okay, is that your recommendation,
Yes.
Mr. Wiggins? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Patterson, do you have anything you'd like to address the city council on this? Okay. Anybody from the public have anyone to make a comment about this property from a member of the general public? All right, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing on this property, 220 Crescent Street. Council members, you heard the recommendation was to find the property a nuisance and order it demolished, but to do an administrative deference of that demolition order for 120 days. And that is the recommendation of the the municipal officer in this matter.
Mayor, I make a motion that we defer demolition for 120 days
as requested or presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second?
Okay. Any further discussion from the council on the motion and the second? All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Okay, the motion is approved. It is declared a nuisance, but we will, in order to be demolished, but we will do an administrative deference on that demolition pending work by that's already been started, and you can see the results of it has already begun by Mr. Patterson. Okay, thank you. Next item, next property is 222 Crescent Street. Mr. Goldman?
Yes, sir. All right. Before I begin, is there anyone with an interest in this property who is present? And I'd just like the record to reflect that there was no one here on this property. This has unfortunately been the case in the story of this property along the way. You have before you the Liz Pendens, the affidavit of publication, and the pictures for this property. They're in the binder. Also, you should have a recommendation form from the building official. And I will also say that the slides that we're working through tonight will be offered to be made available in the clerk's office as a part of the record, even though they may not be made a part of the minutes. But all of these slides that you're seeing, I certainly would offer into the evidence as we hit them. This property, we went through the same process that I described earlier, the 20-day letter, the Liz Pendens. Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything back from this property owner. So I'm going to...
Mr. Goldman, I think I failed to open the public meeting portion of this. So I'm sorry. We'll go back and make that retroactively to his comments about this property on 222. So this portion of the comments are part of the public hearing. So with that, go ahead.
So I call Andy Wiggins up. Andy, if you could talk to us about the photos that you've selected here on the screen.
Yes, sir. If you can see the condition of the windows, on the right side, that's a partial basement under the house. You can see it's collapsed in, and you can see daylight through the windows. And the house or the structure is not secure at all. But there you go, just those two pictures. So it's our recommendation that the house be demolished.
And Mayor, as we reach these, and I know in a second if you ask for other comment, then I'll have a moment of rebuttal.
Okay. Is there anyone here who, I think we asked for anyone who's the owner of this property or has an interest in this property? Now would be the time to address the council with respect to what action you would ask the council to take. All right, hearing none, is there any member of the public who would like to make a comment? Hearing none. Mr. Goldman, is there something further you wanted to say with respect to it?
Yes, sir. With these other properties where we have not reached an agreement, but we're asking for some action tonight, I would ask that as a part of your motion that you accept the findings of the appropriate municipal official as laid out in the Liz Pendens, and in this particular case, that the building be ordered for demolition.
Okay. Make that motion.
Yes, ma'am. I'm gonna see if I can't state the motion for you. If I misstate it, correct me, please, sir.
Yes, sir.
First, we'll close the public hearing portion of this this particular property. And the recommendation from the appropriate municipal official is to declare 222 Crescent Street a nuisance and order it demolished. Also, as part of that motion, I would ask you to accept the findings contained in the list pendings, which are also the findings of the appropriate municipal official that relate to this property. Is that
Yes, sir.
stated correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right, that is the motion that we would need to act on.
Mr. Mayor, I make that motion to declare this property a public nuisance and to demolish it, or whatever is recommended for it.
Okay, the recommendation is to demolish it.
Demolish it.
Okay. And as part of that motion would be to accept the findings set out in the list pendings.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. What was that, Mr. Wells? I'm sorry. Mr. Powell?
Powell.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to make notes as I go here. Okay, you have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion from the members of the council? Anybody have any questions you wish to propound? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of adopting the motion as stated, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that carries, and I thank you for that. Okay, our next property is 110 South Fremont, 101 South Fremont Street. I will declare the public meeting portion open again and call on Mr. Goldman for his comments with respect to 101 South Cotton Street.
Yes, sir. If we could, before I begin, I know we have some folks here who have an interest in this property, if we could have them.
Yes, anyone here who has an interest in 101 South Cotton Street?
My name is John Plummer, a lawyer out of Montgomery. Will you need my address?
Yes, sir.
60 Commerce Street, Suite 1400, Montgomery, 36104. I am here as legal counsel for the owner of the building in question at the time, at this moment, which is FNB Building LLC.
Okay. And could you spell your last name for me again?
Plummer.
Okay.
I also have with me, should we need to hear from him, someone named Edwin Page. You may be familiar with Mr. Page's local contractor.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you for making yourself known, Mr. Plummer.
Interested.
I understand. You're here representing the owner. Sure. Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, Mr. Goldman, will you please provide us with the evidence that you want to present with respect to 101 South Cotton Street, which is also known as around in the community as the First National Bank, the old First National Bank building.
Thank you, Mayor. The council has received a package on this property that, again, contains the list pendants with the findings of the appropriate municipal official. It contains the affidavit of publication, and it contains a number of pictures for this property. I'm also asking Mr. Moore to distribute to you now 2 additional documents. One is a letter that that we received today, dated today, from Southern Structures Corporation, Mr. Page, who's present, setting forth some information on a potential remediation of the building. And you also have been handed a report from the appropriate municipal official making a recommendation. On this particular property, I'm, again, offer the package into evidence, offer these other things into evidence, and in just a second, I'm going to ask Mr. Wiggins to come up and to talk a little bit about the property, but that being said, we believe that we have worked out the beginning of an agreement in principle with the and what we're asking tonight, we have not reduced this to writing, although I will say that they have been working with us to try to get here, not just today or recently, but for the past 3 weeks. And I think that they've made some commitments to do the things that need to be done, but that hasn't been put into the form that I would consider ready enough to ask the council to act on. Again, that Gantt chart that would set forth on a week-by-week basis the work that would be done, and a commitment to keeping to that timeline, plus a little bit extra for contingencies for the safe repair of the building. This one, and what those remediation agreements also state is that if the property owner does not do the work within the time that they've committed to, then the city has the option at its choosing to move forward with the repair itself and to put a lien on the property without further action for those costs. Of course, that's exactly what we're trying to avoid having to happen, and to let the property owner finish that work. But we think that we've got enough detail on this one. We feel like those pieces will fall into place. So we'll talk about those conditions, and then I'll tell you what our recommendation is.
Okay.
Like if you look at your screen, you can see the condition of the windows in this building. As you very well know, that in just a few months back, we had one of the windows turn loose and come to the street. You know, it's not our intent to demolish this building. We would like to see, you know, number one, it be fixed to where it's not a public safety issue. You can see, again, the condition of the windows in this building, and that's throughout the whole building, all 7 floors. Here, if you look on the top left of your screen, you see this cornice work, different decorative type work. You can see that it's starting to crack and come loose, which really concerns us for the safety of pedestrians walking to and forth to the local businesses nearby. The right-hand side, you can see the cracks and that cornice work as well. You can see on the top left, you see a piece missing up there. That was 2 pieces of that, I guess, sandstone, what the proper name for it would be, but it turned loose and came to the ground. Now that wasn't at the 7th, not the highest point of the building. It was a little lower than that, but still, you can see the condition of the exterior of the building. On the right, the same thing, the cracking starting to turn loose. This is what used to be the fire escape in the back of the building that now houses the HVAC units there. It's in some need of repair or removal. It's rather worn. Again, you can see the corner of the building, how the cornice work there is cracking. This is on top of the building. The top left is the top cap around the building. You can see where it's already, the mortar joints have turned loose over the years, and those brick have come loose. If you look to the bottom right, at the very top, that's just looking at the very back of the building between that and the Andela building. If you see from the window over, you can see how that little parapet wall has shifted over about probably a quarter of an inch or so, which is a real concern, a safety concern for us. And there's another view of the back corner. You can see how the mortar's coming loose from the building, you know, and then that's the old, you can see the cap around the top of the area there, how, you know, it's breaking down and starting to crack and coming loose. Again, that shows the mortar joints, how, you know, they're breaking down over time and need resecuring. Okay, that's, any questions on the photographs?
I would just ask you while you're here, the findings that you've made in the list pendants, are they still true today?
Yes.
And unless the building can be repaired in a reasonable and quick amount of time and some safety precautions taken that we'll discuss in a second immediately, is it your opinion that the building is unsafe to the extent that it's a public nuisance and needs to be repaired?
Yes.
All right. Again, because we think that we are at a point, and again, your city attorney met with Mr. Plummer for some length this afternoon, and again, that's the conclusion of a conversation that's been happening between the business folks over the last 3 weeks or so. The recommendation is that if they will agree to put up a construction fence tomorrow, would be our request, to block the sidewalks to prevent injury to any passersby from the conditions that you saw, that you would continue this public hearing and until the next council meeting, and table any business on this particular property until the next council meeting. And along with that, the appropriate municipal official would hold his recommendation, formally submitting it until that next meeting.
Okay, I guess we probably need to go through the same procedures. Mr. Plummer, would you like to reply on behalf of the owner, since you legally represent him here? Is what has been stated here correct as far as where we are is reaching an agreement and asking for this to be continued until the first day of March, which is first meeting in March, which is the first day of March, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want that on the record because all the notices have been given that we're going to do it tonight, but with your concurrence, we're going to put that off until the first meeting in March.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Anyone from the public want to make a comment with respect to what's been said here? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
May I stay here?
Sure. No, you're fine right there. If you.
Mr. Goldman mentioned putting up a construction fence by tomorrow. I have no idea whether that can be done. Mr. Page, though, is here to discuss, if necessary, the scope of the work that he's been engaging in discussion with my client, with Mr. Moore of the building department, things of that nature. Mr. Page just asked me a question that I'm not going to answer, and that is what kind of fence are you talking about? I told him maybe Mr. Wiggins would be the one to speak with about it.
I'm sorry.
I missed the part about putting up a construction fence by tomorrow. I'll have to defer to Mr. Page about how quickly that kind of thing can be done, because I have no idea.
On the interim basis, the temporary construction fence, just the the orange barricade type fence around the perimeter of the building will suffice until we can work out an agreement on what your Gantt chart and work will be. Then we will require a more permanent type, more secure type fencing.
You talking about that orange netting looking stuff?
Temporary construction.
Mr. Wiggins, would that interfere with other businesses as far as traffic going and coming to their business?
No, sir, they will still have access to their business.
How will the barber shop, where will their access come from?
They will have to go down in front of, the hair place, I can't remember the name, Main,
There's some loose stuff up top.
can't remember the, Uptown Salon.
So they'll have to go to the other end
Other end.
access.
They will have to go and come up that way.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to make a comment?
That's the only thing I wanted to, actually just make sure we clarify.
You know, is there some way we could make it so they wouldn't have to walk all the way down to the thing and then walk up? Because a lot of people are used to parking up there close and then going.
Is there such
Because there's a
thing-
solid fence. I
is
mean,
there such thing as like a concrete steps or something you could set in one of the
Set in.
parking places to make it easy to get in and out of the business? Just to accommodate the customer. Okay.
Well, let me say this. We'll go out there and do what we can do, but on almost an emergency basis for a few days. They may have to go down the end. On the long run, we may be some way we can put something in the middle there where they don't have to go all the way down.
put a step and cut the fence.
We can cut the fence and repair it
Yeah.
later on if need be, but immediately, y'all saw the condition of some of that stuff on the side of that building. With us having firsthand knowledge and being told and seeing it here tonight, I think it's important that we take immediate action to protect the public from that, even though it might put some folks out a little bit. We'll try to address that as soon as we can as well.
Mr. Mayor, could I?
Mr. Wilson?
Mr. Mayor, could I suggest, Andy, Richard, that we, as quickly as we can tomorrow, make contact with those businesses along there that there's going to be, I think it would be best if they hear that from us rather than come and find that people can't get to it.
Yes, sir, we'll do that
So-
first thing in the morning.
Okay. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the public? Yes, sir.
I just kind of guess, just from the outside looking in, he's talking about 120 days, is his goal to have work performed on these types of buildings. I think Mr. Page would agree, but I don't believe you can set up scaffolding and take scaffolding down to work on that 7-story building in 120 days, much less accomplish the work. But with that said, while the building does need work, I think we can all agree on that. If the building is, quote, unsafe and such a nuisance, why were city employees on that building as late as days after this suit was filed against these owners, or this notice was given to them, if it was so unsafe? In other words, why were our city employees put in that type of danger to be in that building, to drop a domino, or to shoot fireworks from the building? What's the solution there? What's the reasoning behind that?
I don't know that there is any. I'm not sure I understand your question.
I mean, if it's unsafe, then why were we continuing to allow city employees the opportunity to have access to a building
Well-
that could be, quote, unsafe?
Mr. Wilson, that is not an issue that relates to the action before the city council. I'll be happy to discuss it with you, but it's not part of what we're doing here tonight.
It's public discussion.
Yes, sir, but it doesn't relate to what action we're taking tonight. Okay?
Can the work be performed in 120 days?
I don't know. That's something, Mr. Wilson, you're addressing the council, not people out here. They're not here to be cross-examined by members of the public, okay? If you have a comment or question, we'd be happy to take it.
It's your opinion, Mr. Mayor, that the work can be performed in 120 days on the First National Bank building?
I do not know. I'm gonna have to defer to the experts on this. That will be our people and Mr. Page or whoever the owner hires to do this. It's what we have right here is it will take 90 days to do pre-construction. That's it. And then how long after that it will take to do. What we want to do is to work with whoever is willing to step up and get this work done. If it takes 200 days, we're going to do what is reasonable. What we're not going to do is just put it off forever anymore. We're going to get started, and we'll work with them, and our people will be reasonable about it. But there's got to be some progress shown, and it's going to have some some touchstones along the way in that agreement. By such and such a date, you'll have this done. By such and such a date, you'll have this done. And if you haven't got it done by that date, then you're going to need to come to us and tell us why and what can be done to rectify that. So, okay? Yes, sir. All right. We will then, any other questions or comments from the public? All right, we will close the public hearing portion related to 101 South Cotton Street. And the recommendation was that with the installation of a construction fence as early as tomorrow, that we will continue this public hearing with respect to this piece of property until March the 1st, 2016 City Council meeting. And at that time, we will take the recommendation of the public official, in this case, Mr. Wiggins, and hopefully between now and then, we will have this written agreement firmed up, so we will have something to work with. So, if I could have a motion to continue this as we stated it, I think that would be the appropriate action that being requested here.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion to continuance.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Wells. Do we have a second?
I second.
Mr. Mount has a second. All right. Any other discussion amongst the members of the council?
Yeah, let me just make a comment there. And one of the things, and I think Andy and Richard both will tell you this, in our discussions as we have talked about this over several months, is that if a property owner is going to make good faith effort, we want to make the same good faith effort to give them the reasonable time to do whatever is required to remediate the problem. We can't just let it go because, you know, we have a picture where part of that had fallen onto the street. Ethan came by one day and was riding down Cotton Street, and a window was swinging on that building, and the glass fell out and hit the street. So there is some danger there. Nobody has been hurt, and it's our prayer that nobody does get hurt. But that's the reason we have to take seriously the remediation of some of these properties. And reasonable, I intend to make sure that from my perspective, we're reasonable with whomever the property owner is.
But they got to do something.
Yeah, they can't just do nothing, but if they're willing to give us a plan that is reasonable, we're certainly willing to give them the time to do that.
Absolutely.
That's my perspective.
Let me make a further comment to that. Sometimes it's difficult to get this stuff done when you got out of town, in this case, out of state property owners, and you can't, you know, they're not here. They don't see the condition of the building, and they don't live here. So, you know, it's just real difficult to work with folks like that sometimes. And sometimes we're pushed into this situation where we've got to take action or someone's going to get hurt. In addition to that, that's an icon of a building in the city of Andalusia. We don't want to lose that. But if it's left to continue to deteriorate, at some point it will be beyond reclamation.
Right.
And the only thing that can be done to it is destroyed. And that's the last thing we want to do with it. So, okay, with that having been said, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. All right, thank you. Motion carries. This will come back up, Mr. Plummer, on March the 1st. March the 1st. Yes, sir. You certainly may. Thank you for coming. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, next, everybody okay on the council? Anybody need to take a quick break?
I'm good at the moment.
Good. Okay. Next property to take up is 201 South 3 Notch Street.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. This property, which is locally known as the Opera House, we have again prepared a packet for you that contains the Liz Pendens, the affidavit of publication, and the pictures, with the Liz Pendens containing, again, the findings of the appropriate municipal official, and the pictures depicting some of the conditions of the property. Mayor, if I can, at this point, also pause to see if, I believe we'd also have at least one person here on this property who has an interest in it.
Okay, anyone who has an interest in the property as an owner or tenant or whatever, please indicate, stand, identify yourself for the record and your address.
Bob Billville, 283 Beachview Drive, Fort Walton Beach Park.
You need to open the public hearing, Mayor.
Yes, now we'll open the public hearing. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, sir. Okay. Let the record reflect that Mr. Tisdale's being given a copy of the same packet that we have here before us to review with us.
And in addition, to that, I've also asked Mr. Moore to provide him to Mr. Tisdale with so that he has all the information that you have too. Also, the recommendation worksheet that the appropriate municipal official has prepared, and also I wanted the council to also receive. We've gotten some correspondence from Mr. Tisdale, some as recently as today, and I've asked that be provided to the council. And okay, yeah, please. Well, let me have it. So there's an email dated today, Tuesday, February 16th, 2016 at 2:08 p.m. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to offer this one on Mr. Tisdale's behalf, not just for this first one that we're addressing, 201 South 3 Notch, but also for the for each of the other remaining properties, the 254 Historic Central Street, 233 South Cotton Street, which is the depot, and then the lot next to the depot. For each of those properties, I would ask that you receive his objection and note it for the record. There were pictures that were emailed along with that, and those are also being furnished to you. And also, it's my understanding that the council, there were letters that Mr. Tisdale wrote. I will also mention at this time, again, for the benefit of all the properties, that he wrote previously that we are treating as objections to the proposed actions, and I'm also asking that those be made a part of the record as well. He may have some other things too, but I did want to make sure that those were given to and received by the council. 201 South 3 Notch Street, the Opera House. This one presents a bit of sort of the interesting case of the work of repairs, and this one is recommended for repair. We'll show you an aerial map view so you can see where the Opera House is laid out. You'll see in the upper left-hand corner of this first slide the Opera House when its windows were open, and you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, well, I'll ask Mr. Wiggins to come up and he can describe to us what we're looking at.
If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, the windows have been boarded up from the inside, which does eliminate the availability of birds and other things to enter and rain and so forth somewhat to enter the building. But if you look at the top construction material that was used in those windows, it appears to be a paneling type and luan type material, which is a very, very thin material, which is not water resistant or not resistant to the elements. Mr. Tisdall had put that in there after receiving, our letters from him. Also, one of the things was that the vegetation and all be removed from the building, which you can see on the left that had the vegetation. On the right, it had been removed. If you look on the right picture, you'll see a downspout. If you will look on either side of that downspout, you will see where the mortar and the brick are over the years have deteriorated due to the function of the downspout not being proper. It has holes and separate, and it's in very bad shape. Also, if you'll see the door to the left there, it is exposed to the elements. If you'll look to the right at the bottom, you can see that the weather-resistant cover is coming off of the bottom of the windows there, which in a matter of time, it will deteriorate. Also, you see the mahogany doors to the right. The UV has broken down the coating on those doors, and they're in need of repair also. If you look at the left, you see the downspout, you see some of the vegetation and so forth. On the right, some of the cornice work, facial board, you see it separating there. Again, here on the parapet wall, you can see that on the left, you can see a lot of the mortar starting to loose and come out of the brickwork, which in time will, deteriorate even more and cause it to turn loose. Same thing on the right, you can see how the mortar is basically washed away. The little white thing on the bottom right is where the downspout goes, but maybe there's a picture. Yeah, same thing. You can see the wood begin to rot there on the left, top left picture, and where the downspout doesn't come into the pipe there. On the right, you see the deterioration of the mahogany doors. Again, you see the deterioration of the above the door, the transom window there. It's beginning to deteriorate also. And there again, you can see on the right how the mortar is coming out of the brick there. You want me to do my recommendation?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, unless they have some questions.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions
Okay.
before we get there. On this, the findings that you've made in the Liz Pendens, are those still true and correct today?
Yes.
And based on the condition of the Opera House as it stands today, is it your opinion that it is unsafe to the extent that it's a public nuisance and due to be repaired?
Yes.
And the reasons why they're unsafe, are those a combination, or those set forth in the Liz Pendens?
Correct.
And are they further explained in the report that you tendered to the council?
Yes.
And we haven't gone through sort of an itemization of the building code issues, but you mentioned in here that there was some boarding up of the building that was done. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that there may have been an attempt at doing some other work. But let me ask you this: did the owner ask the city for a building permit of any sort, or otherwise consult with the city regarding any repairs that were made?
No,
So has the city had a chance to take part in the consultation of any of those repairs,
no, sir.
or to approve those repairs?
No, sir.
And based on what you've seen, are the repairs sufficient?
No, sir. They're inadequate.
Now, in the report or the email that we received from Mr. Tisdale today, he tells the council that the entire structure is used for personal storage of antiques and records. Is that correct?
Correct.
Does that cause you any additional concerns for the safety of this building?
Yes,
And why is that?
because it's an occupied building. It has a use. And it creates an even bigger safety hazard, number one, for the fire department and the potential hazard there.
As the building stands today in its condition that it's in, is it your opinion that it also has a blighting effect on the neighborhood itself?
Yes.
All right, that's, any other comments that you have for the council?
Other than the repairs that were done, in my opinion, are inadequate. I mean, they're not weatherproof. Boarding up the inside of the windows will not slow down the deterioration of the exterior window frames and so forth.
Can you explain to the council the repairs that you're recommending?
Yeah. They're laid out. What we are recommending is that within 30 days from the day that all window openings are to be covered and sealed on the exterior part of the building, not the interior part of the building, with a decay-resistant material or other type material that has a protective coating to ensure that weather-resistant seal is made there. In 45 days from today, we recommend that the cornice work be repaired and also replace any rusted or corrugated metal, rotten or decayed wood on the cornice, replace downspouts and repair the roof drains so all mortar and masonry joints damaged around the downspouts and the parapet wall. Replace all rotten or decayed wood on the exterior doors, door jambs, window trims, and the transom above the newly installed doors on the first level. Protect all the exterior wood that is not decay resistant with proper coating to ensure no continued decay.
Does this, was this recommendation made at a time when it was believed that it was an unused or unoccupied structure?
Yes.
And if it is going to continue to be used, where there will be, where traffic in and out of the building, and that it's being put to use, would there be additional things that you would have to do to bring it up to code that you'd have to add to your recommendation?
Possibly, yes.
All right. So is this recommendation with the assumption that the building would remain vacated until further work was done?
Correct.
Even after the repair?
Right. Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.